Okay, so continuing on in Module 4, now we're going to be graphing linear equations, and we're going to do that by plotting points. So you're going to find out that there are many different ways that we can graph a line, and one of the methods is by actually plotting some points. So this is a continuation of Module 4. And again, it's graphing a linear equation. Graphing linear equations in two variables again. So we're using two variables, our x's and our y's, and two variables by plotting points. Okay, and this again still corresponds to section 3.2 in the ebook. Okay, so let's say we want to graph the equation y equals negative 5x plus 5. Okay, and here we're going to use the table method. We're going to use the table method and plot points. So you can think of it as I'm going to put in some x value, and out's going to come some y value, and then I can make that into my x, y coordinate. Okay, so now the question is, well, what kind of x values do we choose? Well, I try to pick ones that might be close to the origin. They might be close to 0. That way I don't have to go out too far on either x or y axis, right? So let's say I'm going to plug in, oops, that wasn't a very good line. I'm going to plug in a couple of numbers. And now the thing is that you really only need 2 points to plot a line. But I think it always helps to, just to double check yourself in case you made a mathematical error. Okay, so remember my y equals negative 5x plus 5. Right, so I'm going to plug that in, and then I'll get a y value, and then I'm going to pair them together to get my point. Okay, so again, what are some good choices for x and y, for x's? Well, like I said, it's always good to pick things that are near the origin. So 0 is generally a number that I'll choose. And then I might pick a negative side and a positive side just to see what happens. So I might just pick negative 1 and 1. Okay, now all I do is I plug in those values for x, right? So I say y equals negative 5 times, and my x is negative 1 plus 5. And so I get positive 5. Negative 5 times negative 1 is positive 5. And 5, that gives me 10. So my point is negative 1, 10. Okay, so let's plug in 0. If I put in negative 5 and x is 0, and I add 5 to it, I just get 5. So my next point is 0, 5. Right, and then my last one, I take negative 5 and I multiply it by 1. Right, these are all my x's. And I add 5, I get negative 5 plus 5 gives me 0. So my point is 1, 0. Okay, so now I have 3 points. Okay, so let's see. We have our 3 points, which is negative 1, 10, 0, 5, and 1, 0. So let's go ahead and write down negative 1, 10. Right, so we have the point negative 1, 10. What else do we have? 0, 5. And 1, 0. I'm going to draw my x-axis and my y-axis. So I label my x-axis and my y, and I plot the points that we found. Right? So I have negative 1, so that's negative 1x, and then positive 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whoa, that's all the way up there. All right, so that's my first point. Then I have the point 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then my last point is 1, 0. So if you notice, I have 3 points here, and they should all fall on the same line. So if I actually try to draw a line through all 3 of these points, you'll see that that works. Okay, so that's one way I can draw the equation. Right, so, whoops, what happened to my line? So that just shows you one way of plotting your line. Okay? Now, supposing we have I'll give you another equation. Okay. Let's say we are asked to graph another equation. Graph y equals 1 over 2, so that's 1/2 x plus 3. Again, we're going to be using the table method. Table method and plotting points. Okay. So again, we have to pick a bunch of x values, and we're going to make our little table here. Now the question is, what kind of x values do I choose now? Well, we could choose integers just like we did last time, but here I have a fraction in my equation. So maybe it's better just to pick something that is a multiple of my denominator, because that way I can get rid of my fraction. So here, in this case, I'm going to choose 0, -2, and +2. And then I'm going to go ahead and plug everything in for x and see what I get out for my y. And then I'm going to put them together, and I get a point. Okay, so in this case I have -1/2. Whoops, I'm sorry, not -1/2, it's +1/2. Whoops. I have +1/2 times a -2 plus 3. So 1/2 times -2 is a -1. So -1 plus 3 gives me 2. So my point is -2, 2. If I have 0 for x, 1/2 times 0 is just 0, right? Plus 3 gives me 3. So I have 0, 3. That's my second point. And then my third point, 1/2 times 2 plus 3 gives me a 1 plus 3, which is 4. So I get the point 2, 4. And now I can plot that. So let's go ahead and graph this. And I'm going to go ahead and draw my points, my axes again. I have this. That's my x. This is my y. Right, so this is my x-axis. This is my y-axis. And let's go and grab our points again, which were, let's see, I think I had the points negative 2, 2, 0, 3, and 2, 4. So I had the points negative 2, 2, 0, 3, and the point 2, 4. Okay, so let's go ahead and start plotting those points. Negative 2, 2. That means I go negative 2 on the x, and then I go up 2 on the y. So there's one point. The next point is 0, 3. So I go 0. I don't go left or right. And then I go up 3. So there's my second point. And then my last point is over to the right 2, up 4, 2, 3, 4. And if you notice again that they all fall on the same line, which is good because that means I didn't do anything wrong with my calculations there. And so there is my graph of that line. Okay, so this is the graph of y equals 1/2 x plus 3.